Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to start our session today with a couple of pieces that have been written by a member of the class, Sinéad Hoben. And I'm just going to read them out. They're the 40 word, isn't it, Sinead? The 40 word challenge. So the first one is spherical beauty. The last butterfly shivered on the doorstep, painted wings dusting the surface, her kind gone forever. There are no more. Like bees and worms, their memories now. The people will learn, but too late. That's wonderful. Thank you. And then she has another one here called Flood. The rain hasn't stopped for days. Water laps at the door. Everything is sodden. Water swirls around his feet, his slippers useless. They didn't listen. There's no escape, no way back. They laughed at the warnings. No one's laughing now. They're amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those. And well done, um, there, Sinead Hoban. We're going to now look at the arguments and point of view. So, the idea behind this, our learning objectives are to understand that the answers are complex. So, in one sense, sometimes solving one problem will cause another problem. So it's fine, for example, to say, let's all get electric cars, but in everybody going out at once and getting an electric car, that would cause an awful lot more environmental upheaval than where we're standing right now. So there are a lot of different complex issues, and we, as writers, we want to present the issues from both sides of the argument. We want to see both sides of the argument to be able to understand both sides of the argument. And maybe from understanding both sides, you can find a way through the middle that satisfies the majority of the issues. But also, as writers, conflict. When you start writing, that's probably one of the first things in a writing group. They're always saying, "Where's the conflict?" And the thing about climate issues is that there is a lot of conflict. Even just down to the idea that some people for a while, and I think we're nearly getting hopefully to the end of this, but say that there was no climate change. I think we can all agree now, and I think it is widely accepted that there is climate change. I think the climate deniers are now shifting to the idea that yes, there is climate change, but they're saying that we didn't cause it. So that's kind of a slight shift that I'm seeing happening. So I'm going to talk to you today about how I used the conflict in climate issues to write a play called Toxic Relationships. And this play was born from a project that I worked on with the Irish Writers Centre called Writing the Earth, in collaboration with ICRAG, the engineers, an engineering body associated with UC, University College Dublin, I think. So ICRAG. But so what they did was they paired us writers with a scientist, and we spoke to, we collaborated, and we got sort of the science represented in our writing. Now, pardon me, my scientist was a scientist who looked at past extinctions. So my problem with that was that I had an issue with, well, who are my characters? Because there were no humans for the last extinction. The last extinction was when the dinosaurs were killed by the asteroid, and that was the fifth extinction event, um, mass extinction event. So we're now facing the sixth mass extinction event. So the question was, well, if you're building any kind of writing, where is the conflict? And usually it's with the characters. So for me, it was like, who are the characters? So what I did was I decided to personify. So sorry, it's a play about the issues surrounding climate change, but I decided to personify the Earth and the Moon, and through them present differing, slightly different perspectives. So the Moon, the Earth, sorry, was like the Mother Earth as we kind of traditionally see Mother Earth, and the Moon was like this friend saying, your humans are causing problems, and you need to do something about these guys because they're there are issues with them, and to put it mildly. So, and then we have a comet who pops in, as comets do. They rotate, so this comet comes on stage every so often, and the comet's job is to speak the truths that no one else is prepared to do. So, really, what I was doing was I was taking and personifying various aspects of the entire climate change issue and question. So we also have, I decided to throw some dinosaurs into the mix, and we have these T-Rexes who are apex predators and dominant at the time of the asteroid hitting, and they are scoffing at humanity's mistakes. So they act nearly like a Greek chorus throughout the play, where they're commenting on what the humans are doing and how foolish they are. As with especially, they're sort of saying things like, well, like we had no control. Our demise came about, or our extinction came about by external forces. But imagine causing your own extinction, and they're incredulous at this. Other characters were the youth of the earth, and the earth as the personification of earth sees the youth and wants to help humans to see their folly, to try and save their youth, if you like. We also have personification of farmers, and the farmer represents agriculture and the debate around food choices. And the farmer, he blames big oil. So everybody starts to blame somebody else. So the farmer will blame big oil, who is also personified, and big oil then claims that they brought about progress and blames industry. That should be a capital I, because industry is also personified. And industry says that they were delivering what humanity wanted, and blames consumer for wanting the bigger house and the faster car and so on, the latest mod cons. And then the consumer represents all of us, because we are all somehow responsible at some level. And I also have poverty represented, and that is, representing the people hardest hit by climate change. Sorry, a little typo in there as well. So, and that then leads to the Earth's Inquisition, which forms the main basis of the play, where the Earth then looks at all the different issues. So what I've done is I've got a little excerpt of it here, which I'll read through with you to try and just illustrate it. It's maybe not, the best illustration, but what I wanted to do was show you something from and be able to tell you from the writer's perspective, why things have been written in. And if you want to ask questions in the chat, I'm happy to answer any questions about it. So this is the sample, and it's different characters. We've got Farmer. Emma is one of the youth. We have Moon and Big Oil, and George is the other youth. So Farmer starts and he says, "It's too late, kid. The damage is already done." And Emma says, "The damage you and your generation did." And the farmer says, "Not all of us. Some of us tried." And the moon says, "Oh yeah, how hard? Humans knew about this 50 odd years ago." Farmer, "Well, it was themins in their fancy big motors, guzzling the petrol, flying all over the world. I just did on my farm all year. Didn't go far, not me. Cranfield for a week in the summer if I was lucky." Emma, "But what about your cars farting methane? Methane is 83 times more potent than carbon dioxide. We should all be vegans." And the farmer says, "Aye, but what about the carbon footprint you rack up importing those fancy avocados? I don't see too many avocado plantations in Ireland. It's big oil you should be attacking, not local farmers." And Big Oil steps forward. Big Oil, "Well, just hold on one doggone minute. You didn't have to use the oil. You could have stayed with horses and carriages. All that horse shit piling up on the sidewalks. Oil is easy. Humans are lazy. We just went with that. Oil brought progress." George said, "Progress? What's progressive about the end of the world?" Big Oil, "What are you talking about? You were too lazy to walk to school. Your mom drove you every day in a giant SUV. We did you a favour." So apologies for the bad language, or I kind of slipped in there before I realized which sample I had put up here. But basically the idea is that each person in this has their own agenda and their own thing that they're arguing about. And I would also add that this was staged by our math theatre group, and the actors did a much better job of portraying the characters than I have just done. They took the play to there was extracts of it down in Dublin at the ScienceCom convention that sort of like demonstrated how you can have science in art and communicate science that way. There was also extracts, there was the entire play was staged in Armagh in April and May, and then in May they took it down to the Bealtaine Festival in Dingle. So it's been out and about and doing its thing, and I think we're hoping to bring it back again in October in Armagh. So anyway, that's an idea of how you can use conflict on in a stage play, but you can just use it yourself with it, even within dialogue to present the arguments. So yeah, what you need to do for each issue is think about pros and cons. So what I'm going to try and get people to do is just to pop into the chat what they think are the pros, just the pros, don't worry about the cons just yet, but what are the pros in going vegan, for example, in changing how we eat, going vegan. So vegan is not using any product at all from humans. No, the play isn't available for purchase yet, Sinead, thank you. But it will be on in Armagh, we're hoping at the end of October 25. So yeah, follow me on Facebook or Instagram for updates. So yes, Jane, you're talking about going vegan. There are health benefits to going vegan. Yes, because you're cutting down on the saturated fat that intake from animal fats. Less gas from the animal, so less methane from animals. It's more humane, yeah. So that's another pro for going vegan. Other pros that I had were, well, you have the lower carbon footprint, reduced water usage. In some parts of the world, that's an issue. Less deforestation. We have the more humane animal welfare, less animal exploitation. You got that one. Definitely the health. Resource efficiency, so it uses less land and water than animal agriculture, so you get more from the land per square acre. And then you have that reduced antibiotic resistance as well. It limits exposure to antibiotics used in livestock. So those are the pros. Now, those are all great pros. They're all great reasons to go vegan. But if you were having a discussion about this around a table with somebody or writing about this, there are cons to this too. There are reasons why people might not go vegan. What would some of the cons of veganism be? What would be a reason for an argument against it? So harder for humans to get all the nutrients. So you need careful monitoring of to get all the nutrients from your food, from just vegetables alone. So B12, iron, and protein intakes. It's time consuming and expensive. Yes, definitely. It's more limited diet, i.e. less variety. That's possibly, and there's the taste issue with that, yeah. So like basically social challenges, limited food options when dining out or at gatherings. Definitely the cost. Time investment, yes, somebody had mentioned that already. Cultural barriers, it can cause conflict with traditional foods and customs. And then there's the limited options in certain regions or socioeconomic conditions. So yeah, I think you guys covered all of that. So you can see that there are two, you need to be a more inventive cook. Yes, indeed. So you can see that there are two sides to this story. All right, so going vegan. Here's another one. Using public transport. There was a very interesting tweet I came across. What was it, yesterday, the day before? Somebody coming traveling through Belfast, and the traffic was bumper to bumper, but they were on the train, so they were passing. They were able to video out their window passing. All the cars stopped. So the pros for public transport. What is a positive thing about public transport? I'll jump in here with, yeah, cuts down emissions, so reduced individual carbon footprint through shared transportation. It decreases traffic congestion and associated idling emissions. Yeah. In some places, yeah, it is cheaper than running a car. It also depends on your car. So we'll come to, well, I'll throw that in there, but it can be cheaper than running a car, especially if it's just one person in your car. Yeah. Less accidents, maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully. Yeah. You would hear on a daily basis at the minute, especially at this time of year, about road traffic accidents, but thankfully we're not hearing about daily bus or train accidents. Um, it encourages compact urban development. It reduces urban sprawl, public transport. Um, and the infrastructure often supports low emission vehicles as well. What would be a con? What would be the argument, the counter argument then to public using public transport? Why would people say, well, I'm not using public transport because not often, yeah, often not enough seating, especially and difficulties faced by prams and disabled passengers. Good, there's a lot coming in now. Yeah. Yeah, definitely very limited service. I can say that too, living in Armagh. We have no train service. It's a big thing for us in Armagh. It's something that I bring up at every opportunity. Um, Limited routes and timetable, poor provision in rural areas. Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. And it's difficult to organise family. So yeah, so the cons to a public transport system is that it may have limited route schedules or forced to use some car to get to, for us, I'd have to drive to Portadown and park to get the train to Belfast, for example. Once I'm in the car, I might as well just stay in the car and go the whole way to Belfast. Um, it's difficult to transport goods. So if you're getting your shopping, I remember living in a big city where I didn't own a car and I was having to shop nearly every day because I couldn't do like a weekly shop like what I would do now. Older diesel buses can produce significant emissions. That's kind of getting phased out though, but that, again, we're looking at all the different pros and cons. Um, Underutilized services may be less efficient than personalized vehicles. It can take longer to get where you want to because of all the stops, yeah. Construction of new infrastructure creates temporary emissions, so you can have, like we were calling it, downstream emissions as well. So you've got you maybe a pristine area of the countryside and you put a train line through that and now you've got extra emissions in that area. And then the system delays, it may increase idle time as well. So, and you've just even got things like, like linking up. So if I take the bus to Portadown, and then if the bus is coming in, there's an extra half hour to wait maybe for the train, and you're adding that extra time onto your journey. So it's not a clear cut, yes, take public transport. Public transport is easier. What about then, here's another one. Buying second hand, so reduce, reuse, recycle. And they talk about buy second hand clothes. Don't let the fashion industry, there's an awful lot of waste in the fashion industry and this sort of disposable fashion. So what about that then? What is the pro to buying secondhand? And we're not even just talking about clothes. It could be household furnishings. It could be plates, cups, all of that. Yeah. So cheaper and less wasteful. Yeah. Less landfill. Definitely. It saves money. Definitely. It really does. Yeah. I know that was one of the things about writing toxic relationships. I sort of felt I had to start practicing at least some of what I preach. So I started using the, sort of secondhand shops, and I have to say I have gotten some gorgeous jackets that I wouldn't have ordinarily have bought. So it goes against the vegan thing, but these jackets are 100% leather. But I got them for a steal. Um, the animal is dead anyway, so the leather will last. Whereas a pleather jacket, for example, or things that are made from fossil fuels, or fossil fuels oil, would eventually break down and decompose badly, if you like, into the environment. So yeah, so there's buying secondhand reduces the impact on the environment, and you can sell or give goods to people who want them. That's right. So good. Buying secondhand, cons. Let's see, against secondhand. I'll start with older items may be less energy efficient. So, for example, electrical goods, um, transport emissions from individual buyers and sellers might be an issue. Um, the items might need repairs or require new parts, limited availability, and they can be sometimes overpriced. There's a limited choice, there's quality issues, and then there's postage and packaging costs, especially if you're buying them from secondhand online sites, then there's more emissions there. So again, pros and cons. So here's one. Cycling to work. What are the pros to cycling to work? It's going to be quite similar to the public transport one. Health benefits, definitely. And there's something about, and I don't have a bicycle now, I used to have, but I don't have anymore. But I would even say for me, I can walk into town from here. And I find that sitting inside and looking out at the weather, it always looks worse. But once you get out in it, you feel so much better. So a positive thing for that is it's good health benefits, but good mental health benefits as well. Um, there's fewer emissions. You're wide awake when you get there. Yes, it definitely warms you up. I used to cycle to work when I taught in Belfast, and I just loved you just felt really energized. Yeah, you're surrounded by nature if you're living in the country. So lots of very good positives there. No fossil fuel dependency. It promotes sustainable urban infrastructure development, and it has minimal environmental okay. Cons. What are the cons for cycling to work? Yes, big one there is danger of cars, lorries, buses. That's a huge thing, I think, with it's the safety concerns. And again, that ties in with infrastructure. If your infrastructure is good, it's not that danger. It limits, it brings the danger down. You can still fight. Yeah, dying's a pretty big con. Thank you, Ashling. Um, it may require a shower or facilities at work, um, which is what I would have done when I cycled to school. Thankfully, the PE department were very good and let me use the facilities there. Your initial equipment also, but again, compared with buying a car, it's still cheaper. Lack of space, yeah. Um, Definitely weather is an issue. Um, and clothes is an issue. So you still like, yeah, you'll cycle in your cycling clothes, but you'll need somewhere to change, and you'll have to carry stuff. So you'd need to be able to carry stuff in a pack. And then yeah, weather, definitely. Good. Okay. All right, here's one. Airplane travel versus rail travel. So what are the pros of the airplane travel? Let's say if you're arguing that you want to travel in an airplane, what would you say? It's faster. Yeah, everybody's jumped into that one. Yeah, it's definitely faster. Um, and it's probably the only way to get across a large body of water. In the right, in a fast, I mean, obviously you can't use a train to get across a body of water unless it's a bridge, but your options are airplane or boat, and ferries can sometimes have as high a carbon footprint per person as a passenger in a commercial airline. Um, what are the so I'm already jumping into the cons. So what are the bad things about airplanes? Yeah, the large carbon footprint. Um, all right. I'm going to jump into then what is the pluses for rail travel compared to now I'm not talking about like between say Portdown and I'm talking about long distance rail travel. So we're talking probably continental Europe, if you like. Um, so what are the pros there? You see a lot from the train. It's a very pleasant way. It can be quite fast. It can use renewable energy in terms of electricity, so they can be electrical trains that are using renewable electricity. You have higher cargo capacity, and it connects communities, and the infrastructure already exists in many regions. But what's the con for the rail travel? What would go against the rail travel? Keeping in time here. It's slow. Okay, mostly it's slow and you can't cross an ocean. Okay, rewilding. So rewilding is just letting the land go to back to nature. Okay. So um I'm going to kind of speed this up because I'm getting little bit short on time, but you can throw into the chat if you want. But pros to rewilding is that it sequesters carbon, it captures carbon and stores it in the ecosystem. It improves biodiversity and supports climate resilience. And it's really good for natural flood prevention. It helps with filtering, if you like, water through the ecosystem, and it is self-sustaining once established. But what goes against rewilding is that there's like initial land use conflicts, or it can take years or decades to reach the full potential, or it may reduce agricultural land, and it sometimes requires ongoing management. And I just wanted to put up here an example of on social media where you will see arguments happening about rewilding. Oh, I will not worry about other issues because we've run out of time there. But this is Owen Dalton has written an Irish rainforest, and he has rewilded an area down in County Cork, and he promotes this rewilding. And somebody has this is the argument online, like this is just within the last 10 days. So it's very interesting that his focus here is what species that he has promoted, and but a very equally a good point is like food, like we need to provide food for people to eat. And down here in the side, there's an ongoing discussion between people talking about the pros and cons and the argument basically around it. So I'm just going to, this is a writing exercise, but we've run out of time here for doing it. But what I want you to have a think about for the next day is to choose one of the issues that we've discussed and write a dialogue between two very different types of people to illustrate their perspectives and share your feedback. So I'm just going to share this from the chat. Somebody has said here, Laura Henry has said, our rewilded farm now has newts and buzzards, and it's awesome. And that is amazing. That is just lovely news to hear. I'd love to see that that it's working. And yes, a very important point is that invasive species do intrude on this. You can't just leave a field. You have to manage it. You have to take out the invasive species to give room for the native species to flourish. So that's basically where we're at right now, and that's the resources, and they're in the chat as well. And yeah, I think that's everything for today.